This Bitcoin monthly chart providing a ton of data, a ton of guidance, truly a roadmap for us as we navigate this bear market. I just came across this tweet from the Wolf of All Streets. Bitcoin monthly RSI is at its lowest point. And I haven't opened up the monthly momentum oscillators much lately, but this is such key valuable data. And I'm actually going to show you and dig into these momentum oscillators to discuss why this is signaling what I think is the bottom range of the bear market. It has never hit oversold. That's something we should point out. The previous low was 44, currently sitting around 40. And you can see his chart here, Bitcoin monthly chart at the lowest it's ever been on this chart. Let's go to actual chart. So this is basically what we were just looking at. Oversold in terms of Bitcoin historical terms, right? It's never crossed below the actual oversold mark on this momentum oscillator. It's a slower moving momentum oscillator. But in terms of Bitcoin historical context, it's never gone this low. So it kind of is oversold in regards to previous cycle lows. But this is the last bear market low, 2018. This is 2015 back here. And here we are right now. Now, I know the chart looks ugly. I know it looks terrible. This is Bitcoin acting as if it's never done this before. And it's seemingly weak. It's seemingly failing. It's falling. But I want to say, in my view, when you start actually looking at what's happening here, Bitcoin actually proving to you and I, to the world, to markets, how strong it is. And I want to discuss why. The reason why, we have to first identify why this is happening. It has nothing to really do with Bitcoin. This has to do with the fact that we're in a recession. And this recession is happening on a macroeconomic playing field. And this means that in all the entirety of this chart that we see here with Bitcoin, Bitcoin has never lived or survived through a moment such as this. And here's what's so promising about this. Here's the positive spin on this story as this chart looks terrible. The positive spin is this. Bitcoin is very much surviving. And just to give you a very brief picture of that, if we go over here on this chart, Bitcoin down, and this is a daily chart on Bitcoin, down right now around 75%. So it's down 75% in the middle of a recession, which is something that Bitcoin has never lived through. Now, if we go back to the last bear market cycle, you can just see Bitcoin total was down 83, 84%. So we're in a recession. Bitcoin's never done this before, never been in a recession. And Bitcoin right now, as we're kind of in this bottom range, getting through one of the worst years in crypto, Bitcoin's still down less than it was down back in 2018. I'm not trying to put hopium out there, everybody, but these are data points that we need to focus on. They kind of, in my opinion, as I navigate through the bear market myself, these are data points that I need to just kind of latch onto and remember, because when we look at just kind of surface level data points, which is Bitcoin's oversold, it's never, or Bitcoin's this low, it's never been this low on the RSI, what's going on? There's more to the story. There's more context to what's going on here. This is the picture of a recession. This is what Bitcoin looks like in a recession on the monthly oscillator. And so one thing I want to point out, and for me, this really starts to signal the bottom range for Bitcoin. So I think the next minute or two, as we dig into this chart, as it kind of overlaps with on-chain data, this is probably the most important part of the video. And the data we're about to look at after we look at this momentum oscillator is this. And this is stablecoin redeem count on-chain metrics. We're going to dig into that for a second, and you'll start seeing how the bottom potentially coming together here. So we just look at the slower moving momentum oscillator, the RSI on the monthly chart. One thing I want to point out, we've already pointed out Bitcoin is still not down even as much as the last bear market, right? So if Bitcoin were to repeat last bear market, it still has cushion to the downside. Bitcoin could still fall. And we've already identified that on this chart in terms of this bottom range for Bitcoin below this 786 horizontal yellow line. This is the bottom range, all the way down to $11,000 to $12,000. It would be commonplace for Bitcoin. We've already identified all of that. We go back to the momentum oscillators, though. I want to take a look at the quicker moving momentum oscillator, this stock RSI. Notice this. In this bear market, Bitcoin, when these indicators started falling into this oversold area on the stock RSI, you can see around 365 days since it kind of fell below. The last bear market lasted below this area on the stock RSI 365 days. the bear market before that, you can see 365 days in, we still had kind of just months of just pain, right? Bear market pain. And that doesn't mean downside, but if we look at the chart, you can just see it was very, volatile, sideways the last few months of this bear market, volatile and sideways and just unknown. This could be a very similar story that's playing out right now. So even in terms of these momentum oscillators, when we start really bringing all of the data together, Bitcoin on this chart, just so very much consistent with previous cycles. So I think this is interesting to look at this RSI being the most oversold or the farthest down it's ever been. But what's promising about it is the story that is found within this. And that is the fact that this is what Bitcoin looks like, surviving a bear market recession on a global scale. And it's actually very impressive in my view. And again, I'm not trying to put hopium out there at all, but I'm very much analyzing my own risk tolerance in these markets. I'm here to stay. I have a plan. I'm not spending more than I can afford to lose. And so it's easy for me to be optimistic when I have this macro-minded, longer-term view on what's in store for this space, on what's in store for crypto. Now, I mentioned this, and this is kind of the stablecoin redeem account. Real quick, pay attention to this data because it's extremely beneficial, I would say, in giving us insight as it pertains to the chart that we just looked at. A stablecoin is said to be redeemed when an investor exchanges a token for fiat through the issuer of said coin. So, all right, maybe they see markets going down. They want to kind of exit. They want to get out of that mess, and they want to go to somewhere safe like a stablecoin. That's kind of the story that's playing out there. So here's the chart of what we're going to be digging into. Something very important just happened in this bear market, and this breaks it down very nicely. During the large declines in the price of Bitcoin in this bear market so far, the stablecoin's redeem supply has usually registered high values. So if we look at this, we zoom in a little bit, you see these blue upticks. This is when Bitcoin's falling. The redeemed stablecoin you see these high values, boom. Even most recently in December, boom, over here, the redeemed stablecoin increasing. The stablecoin redeem count also observed spikes during such dumping events, except for the most recent one. This implies that in the price plunges before the latest one, many investors always took part in stablecoin redemptions, showing that the market had a uniform and more natural selling appetite. And it really has. Every time Bitcoin has fallen, there has been kind of this natural selling appetite. But check this out, and this is what it's pointing out. You do see the redeemed stablecoin in blue, these upticks every time Bitcoin falling, even most recently. But look at this most recent time. Bitcoin or the stablecoin redeem account at the bottom, no simultaneous uptick with the redeemed stablecoin. Now, if you look at this previous graph, in these previous Bitcoin falls, there was an uptick. So what is that saying? It's saying this means that only a few whales were involved in this dumping event, a possible sign that large-scale selling pressure may be getting depleted in the market. So you might be like, well, what does really that have to do with the momentum oscillators, that oversold type of deal on the RSI we just looked at? And here's what it has to do with. If large-scale selling pressure is starting to diminish and starting to fall off, that means as Bitcoin is at its lowest on this momentum oscillator, technically oversold historically from a Bitcoin standpoint, this means that these are perfect indicators of the bottom of a bear market. And this is in the midst of fear headlines, right? This is in the midst of just emotions kind of very scared in the markets right now, the data telling a different story. And when we have this just contrast, and such a clear contrast of emotion versus data, it is, in my view, in my opinion, in my history in these markets, and I've been on YouTube covering crypto for over 5 years now, paying attention to the data is where the money is. Paying attention to the data is how you win. And it's not always the most comfortable thing, but the data is saying Bitcoin is oversold historically more than it's ever been. The data is saying selling pressure is kind of falling and diminishing. And all the while, We have things, and I haven't even discussed in this video because I talk about it all the time, but we have things happening on these charts that is so consistent from a technical analysis perspective that says Bitcoin bottom is very, very close. Namely, one of those things is the last bear market low to bull market high, this yellow line, this retracement 786 line, Bitcoin right there. And this is where Bitcoin has bottomed in previous bear markets. All of the signs of a bear market bottom are coming into play. And I just want to say this, everybody. I realize how risky crypto is right now. I realize how many people think that 2023 is going to be worse than 2022, the recession, all of this. I think we're already in a recession. And I think history tells us, as far as what I've learned, that the year before the actual recession is when markets are at the worst. And that for me means 2022, I really think is the worst. And I could be very wrong. I could be very wrong about everything I'm saying right now. I realize that. But this is just my opinion. I think 2022 was the worst of it. I think all of the data is truly coming together to really start giving us a very clear picture of the bear market. The one thing that makes the picture unclear, truly, from what I see online, is emotion. And if cycles repeat itself, and not just crypto cycles, but if financial markets and traditional markets, if those cycles repeat itself, the bottom is getting very close over there as well. And the markets could very well, in my opinion, turn around before the economy turns around. And that's something that I'm highly anticipating. Again, no guarantees. Again, I realize the risk here. Again, I'm not trying to be overly optimistic, but I know my macro long-term outlook on these markets, and the fact that things are oversold to me is just a perfect presentation of opportunity. So this is just what I'm seeing today. Let me know your thoughts, how you're doing out there. I appreciate you if you're still here. Hit the subscribe and like. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.